I'm Yvonne from IvonnePlusOne, and today I have a crazy story about love. That this was definitely not a normal love story and definitely no legal. And this happened in the 1940s in Key West, Florida. And it was more like a tale of obsession of an old crazy man. And this man was Karl Tanzler, this little dude right here. So Karl Tanzler, he named himself Count Karl von Cosel as if he was novelty, but he was not. That was just a name that he did for himself. Not only did he fell in love for this lady, he built an entire life with his bride after she died. So Karl was born in February 8th, 1877. So this was a long, long time ago. And he was born in Germany. He was there for most of his life. He went to college there and everything. He did travel to Australia and other places. And eventually he got married somewhere around the 1920s to a girl named Doris Schaffer. And they had two daughters. And at one point they decided to move to the United States. So he came from Germany to the United States, specifically to Florida. He did it by himself first. So he came, and a little bit after, his wife and daughters came and joined him. But that didn't last long because a year after he was here in the United States in 1927, he packed his stuff and he moved all the way to Key West. So he originally landed in Zephyr Hills, Florida, where his sister lived, and then the wife came, the daughters came, and then he left them all behind and he moved to Key West. Here, he was working as a radiology technician at a U.S. Marine hospital, this hospital right here. So, I mean, he said himself that he was like a doctor and a scientist and a everything, but I don't think he officially had any title. But he was working as a radiology technician in this hospital, and everything went well. I mean, he moved in 1927, and for about 3 years, nothing eventual happened. And then on April 22nd, 1930, a girl named Maria Elena Milagros de Hoyos, or how you guys will say it right here, Elena de Hoyos, she came to the hospital because she was sick and needed treatment. And Karl was the one who took like a blood sample and did her x-rays. Elena was 21 years old at that moment. However, when Karl saw her, he knew she was the woman of his visions. Because you see, when he was in college, he had this vision that a dead family member came to him, and her name was Countess Anna Constantia Boncosel, and she showed him the face of his true love, which was an exotic dark-haired woman. So he was, I mean, as soon as he saw Elena, he was like, oh my God, this is it. Because he been looking for her all his life. In fact, when he was moving from Germany to the United States, he had to stop in Havana, Cuba, and he was looking for her everywhere, but he didn't find her. And now, there she is. She's right here in front of him. However, there was a little bitty problem. She was sick with tuberculosis, which at that time basically was a death sentence because there was not a cure. The other problem that they have is that she was technically married. In fact, the first appointment that she went to the doctor, she went with her husband. She was married to Luis Mesa. And right here is a picture of them in their wedding day. But, you know, Tanzler didn't care about that. Was not a big deal. That was something that he will take care of later. He was just happy that he finally found that lady of his vision in his dream. But this problem didn't last long because Luis Mesa, for some reason, he just picked up his stuff and left Elena for another woman, and he moved to Miami, which kind of broke Elena's heart. Now, Elena had to keep going to the hospital to get treatments for her because she was really sick, but she will go with her mom. And both of them couldn't stop noticing that Tanzler, he was like very interested in her case, and he really wanted to help them, and he really wanted to save her. So they started treating him as a family member. They will invite him over to have dinner with them, and little by little he will go every day to their house, and they then he will start bringing like little presents like a silk dress or jewelry. At one point he even brought furniture like her bed, and he will bring food and wine, and he will say he did all this to lift her spirits because she was kind of down from being sick and from being left by her husband. So he will bring all these little presents, right? He will bring all these little presents for her. And eventually he actually confessed and say, you know what? I really love you. I want to marry you. And she was like, oh, Mr. Carl, no, I'm married. Thank you, but no thank you. And he will persist. And at one point, her dad heard him and he was like, if she ever remarries, she will marry a Cuban man because they were Cuban descendants. But Tanzler, he wouldn't give up. He will continue bring her presents and professing his love for her, and offering all these kind of weird treatments. So he will create his own concoctions, and he will try to give her tonics and medication and radiation therapy. And all of these therapies he came up with by himself, right? Because he considered like an entrepreneur of medicine at this time. So for what I understand, he created this radiation therapy where he will put like a little device in her mouth and it will kind of send some kind of shock waves into her. And at the beginning, they were kind of soft waves, but as he increased the treatment, they would get stronger and stronger, and they were actually painful. But they went along with this because they didn't have any other options. They didn't have money, so they couldn't keep going to the hospital, and he was the only one who was willing to do something to try to save her. So they just went along. Tanzler went as far as creating a special lab that he built inside an airplane that he owned, like that one right there, that he eventually named Contessa Elaine Boncosel C3. And this, I believe he named it like that because he already believed that she belonged to him. As time passed, the family started having doubts about him because, first of all, he was always complaining. They were Cubans, so there was a lot of people coming over and they will talk and laugh and they will sit next to Elena. And he felt like that was kind of preventing Elena from getting better. Or her dad will like take her out to go around in the car so she will get fresh air. And they will have these conflicts between the family members and Karl Tanzler. And eventually they say, you know what? We want you to stop doing any treatments. We want you to stop. Don't come over here anymore. We are done with you. And he was prohibited to come to the house for months. Now, at that time, the family will take Elena to all the doctors, and almost every doctor will tell her the same. I'm so sorry, there's nothing we can do. Just take her home, make her comfortable. But there was no medication they would treat her at this time. And for those who don't know, tuberculosis is a bacterial infection. They usually affect the lungs, so it will get progressively worse where you start coughing up blood and just unto the point where it's all over. So they say, there's nothing we can do. Just take her home, make her comfortable. And the family was desperate. So after months of not seeing Tanzler, they finally call him and say, can you come back and just try to save her? So he was beyond happy, and he did. He came back and he started giving her treatments again. Now, when he came back, he was so delusional that he believed that Elena had said to him that basically take care of her even if she dies. So one day he was describing here, and this is a page of his memoir. So he will describe like she asked him to bring her a little trunk, and then she opened it, and then she took a couple of pictures, and then she said, "Take them away, Karl. It makes me sick to look at it. I do not know what fully made me marry that man. Cut him off my side." So cut him out of my sight, meaning cut the pictures away. Then he said that she said, "If I must die, all I can leave you is my body, for I am only a sick girl, so I can't marry you while I am sick. But you will take care of my body after I am dead, won't you?" So that's what he really heard her say at one point, which pretty much I'm sure she didn't do that. I mean, who will ask somebody to take care of the body when you die? You're just probably worried that you're gonna die and leave your family behind. Well, he considered this as a marriage vow for him. From that point on, he believed they were engaged to be married. Now, despite everything he did, she died. She died on Sunday, October 25th, 1931. And he was devastated. And she was buried 6 feet underground in the local cemetery. And he will come every single day and sit where she was buried. And he was worried that her body was going to get wet from the rain and her body was going to get destroyed. So he actually put like a tar on top of the grave. And he convinced the family that he will build an above the ground mausoleum for Elena. So they allowed him to take the body from the ground, okay? And at the moment they put the body at the morgue, or actually at the funeral home. They put the body at the funeral home while he built this mausoleum, right? He got permission from the family and from the state to be able to take the body from the ground. What the family didn't know is though that while the mausoleum was being built, he took care of Elena's body, meaning he opened the casket and he cleaned her completely, and he will put a bunch of chemicals on her to stop the decomposition process, right? And he will create this special casket, and it was two caskets. The inside casket it will be like water seal, and it will be full of formaldehyde. And then the second casket, so that will be placed inside the second casket, which he will airtight. So this will prevent Elena's body from decomposing or decaying as fast as it should have normally, right? So he did all this, and the family didn't know that. And once the mausoleum, which looked almost like a summer house, this is a picture of the mausoleum. When it was completed, he put the casket inside there and he locked the door, and he was the only one with a key. So nobody but him had access to it. Now the headstone read, Elena Milagros Hoyos, born in July 31st, 1908, and died October 25th, 1931. And then said R.I.P. C.T. de Cosel. So in his mind, like I said, they were already married. So he was giving her the Contessa de Cosel label even in her headstone. Now he will come. He will come to the mausoleum every day, every night actually after work. He will come every night, and he claimed that Elena spoke to him. She will ask him to please take her home. So he started making plans. He said that she even sang him a Spanish song about a lover who opened the grave of his dead bride. So in his head, he was hearing that Elena said, "Hey, take me home." And that's what he heard over and over. Every night he will come and he will be, "Oh, be patient, Elena. We will do it. I will take care of you." And he did. He made a plan. So 2 years after she died, or around 2 years after she died, he actually stole her body so he could properly take care of it. Now, the night in question, he waited. So he had planned it in the sense that he waited, there was a new moon, so there wouldn't be a lot of light from the moon. And he waited until it was midnight, so nobody, like the neighbors, wouldn't see him. And then he got a little toy car, and he will put the casket on top of it, and he will drag it. And he described later in his memoirs that everything seemed alive that night, with all the souls around them moving like a wedding march for him and Elena. So for him, that was their wedding day. So he took the casket, and then he had to pick up the casket and put it over the fence. And he will say how at one point the casket fell on top of him, and he kind of had to, like, I don't know how heavy that is. Just imagine the one inside was full of liquid, but plus the body, plus the weight of the casket. He had to move it from on top of him and eventually lift it and pass it over the fence, which he was able to do, okay? But he said that when he was doing that, I guess one of the inner valves that prevent the liquid from coming out had opened, and he got all this liquid of the chemicals plus the decomposition all over him, and how horrible that smell. And he had to clean himself with like alcohol and water, and it will take a long time for that smell to go away. So how disgusting is that? Now, the first thing he did is that he moved the body to a safe house, which was midpoint to where he actually wanted to take her. And then he went home. And what home means is like he was actually sleeping in Elena's bedroom because he rented that bedroom from her parents. He would pay $5, I think, to stay there. So he was staying in her bedroom with her bed, with her furniture, with her clothes. Everything was there. So he went back. So after he stole the body from the cemetery, he went back to the parents' house and cleaned himself up and slept maybe like a baby. I don't know. He probably was so happy that he finally was going to be reunited with Elena. And for a day, he left the body rest, but I think he probably was tired because think he was probably somewhere around late 50s, maybe early 60s at this time. So this is not like a young man. And this is in the 1920s, so people look older anyhow. So he let her rest for a little bit. And then when he was able, he moved the body or the casket to the makeshift airplane lab, the one that he was working when she was still alive. And this plane was actually located in the U.S. Marine Hospital behind the morgue. So he was actually in hospital property, and I don't know how no one saw him bringing a casket. Then he said that he will only work at night because he didn't want anyone to see him, and he will be there all night. So the first night he was able to open the casket, he was devastated because even with all the efforts that he did to kind of preserve her body, she was still kind of falling apart, and her clothes were stick to her skin. So he drained the casket, and he started cleaning her up like with soaps and more chemicals, and he would put a bunch of perfume trying to take the smell of decomposition from her. Now, once he was satisfied of being clean, he dressed her up, and then later in his memoir he described, and I mean this is disgusting just so you know. He said, I was trembling with burning love, and I kissed her as if she were alive. So he actually kissed her, and she's been dead for 2 years. At this point, I don't even know how like the lips were, or if she had any. I don't know. I think that's just disgusting. But anyhow, he will have to come every day and clean her again with soap and cleaning solutions because it's not like this smell is gonna go away. So he had to do that over and over. And then he had a little situation. There was a new commander. So the commander came and said, you know what? You have to move everything. You have to move the airplane from the property of the hospital. It doesn't belong here. So Tanzler grabbed everything he owned. He grabbed the airplane with Elena inside, and then all his belongings from her parent house, and he moved to a little shack on Red's Beach, which he actually named Elena's Castle. Okay? So in here, now he had more privacy, right? This little shack was in front of the beach, and there were no neighbors around, so he pretty much could work day and night. And by this time, he wasn't working at the hospital anymore. So he had all the time of his life. That was the little airplane where Elena was, and that's the little shack right there. So he started creating all these devices, like he created this little incubator that he will fill out with plasma, and he will put her body in there for hours and hours trying to kind of rehydrate the body because at this point she was kind of shrinking. These are a few of the things he did. He opened her up and reinforced her bones with wires, like her ribs and any joints that have fall apart. He will put them together with wires. Then for her skin, he will grab like pieces of silk and cover them with beeswax and plaster, and started to kind of put it on top of the skin to kind of make sure that it will keep her original shape. Like she would do layers and layers of that. And for her insides, because most of her organs were already kind of gone, he will just put a bunch of cotton racks to kind of keep the shape of her like body. Now her hair also fell apart, and he made like a little wig with her own hair and put it on. And once her eyes were completely gone, he replaced them with glass eyes. It was later found out that he actually also wanted to consummate the marriage, and he did some vaginal modifications and committed act of necrophilia, meaning he actually has sex with her. So you just imagine that this girl has been dead for 2 years, and this dude is having sex with her dead body. I don't even want to think how that went. But thank you, no thank you. Because, I have heard of necrophilia before, but I always assume it was somebody who had sex with a person who just died, not with somebody who's been dead for 2 years and then all the way till 9 years, because she was with him for many, many years. He will dress her up in a silk robe. He will place like a little veil over her face because he want her to be modest for him. He will lay her in the bed and they would sleep next to each other. And he will play to her like organ music, and he will say, "Hi, come Elena, wake up, let's eat breakfast together." He will put flowers around her head, and he will cover her with a special net because he didn't want any insects to kind of disturb her body and put eggs and stuff like that. For 7 years, he enjoyed the company of his love, and they lived peacefully together as a man and a court bride until October 1940. And here's when things got a little sticky for him because, there have been rumors around Key West about what is Karl Tanzler doing because they keep seeing him buying this excessive amount of soaps. Like almost every day he will buy soap and perfume and female clothing. And people start wondering what the hell is he doing with all these things. Now, there's other people that said, I saw him dancing with a lady inside his house. Or others that say, he gets mad every time I try to peek inside the airplane and I saw the body of a female or a female laying down in there. And someone even said, I sneak inside the airplane and I touched the body and it was still soft. So he believed, or that person believed, that Elena never made it to the new mausoleum, that she actually was taken straight from when she was buried underground all the way to his airplane and never made it to the mausoleum because nobody saw the body in the mausoleum and he's the only one who had the key. Now, these rumors have been going around, and then one of the workers called Elena's sister, Miss Medina, because one of the glass doors in the mausoleum was broken. So she went to check it out. So she's been hearing all these rumors. And then when she goes to the mausoleum, it's completely unkept, which was unusual because Karl Tanzler, he used to go every day there. So when she saw the state of the mausoleum and the rumors, she went to confront him. And like at the beginning, she was like, I want you to open the mausoleum and I want to see my sister. I want to make sure she's there. And he was like, oh, she's there and all that. And eventually he said, let's come to my house. And she did. She and her husband went to her house. And when he opened the door, he's like, come in here. I got your sister in here. And she was like, what do you mean? And what she saw, it was a human-sized doll version of his sister. And it completely freaked her out. And she went to the police and told him, hey, he has my sister. She looks like a mommy. Go check it out. And eventually he was arrested on October 5th, 1940. And he was charged with removing a body from the grave without permission. So when the trial started, before the trial started actually, the sheriff's department went to his house and they found a tiny room with a homemade pipe organ, the one that he used to play for her every night. And in the bed, they found Elena. And she was dressed in a wedding gown, complete with lace, a veil, and silk flowers. And her body was completely mummified. So that's what the sheriff department found. And so they took the body away from him, and he was arrested and taken to jail. So now the trial started happening. And they of course, they interviewed the sisters and the people from the funeral and all that. So the first thing that he said, he actually confessed that he has taken Elena. He never denied that he took Elena's body from the grave. He said, I opened her coffin and found that the body was decaying. I did not want one so beautiful to go to dust. I stole the body about 2 years after she died and had it with me ever since. And by that time, it has been 7 years since he stole the body. Now they questioned him and said, what did you find when you disinterred her? What did she look like? And he said, there were plenty of maggots. Her body was teeming with them. Everything was a mess. So when he opened her for the first time, she was a mess. And remember, he cleaned her and then he kissed her. So just think about that. Now, they also asked her, how will it affect you if the body was taken from you? And he said, I will feel lost. I have promised her I will keep and protect her against destruction for the rest of my life, even at the sacrifice of my own life. So he was willing to do anything to make sure that her body was safe. Because he truly believed, if you read his memoirs and his story, he really believed that he was going to bring her to life. It wasn't just about bringing the body to the former self, the love of his life, of the vision that he had. He really believed that he was going to bring her to life. And in fact, sometimes he will say, oh, I saw her breathing again. She was trying to come back to me, but then she will go and stuff like that. So this man was delusional. He really was. Now, sadly, all charges were dropped due to the statute of limitations, so he walked a free man. And he was so delusional, like I said, that he asked the judge, when can I have her body back? And of course, her sister and the judge were like, you cannot have her back. It doesn't belong to him. And he will say like, well, I pay for the mausoleum and I pay for all the clothing and all the stuff. And he really believed that she belonged to him. And they were like, no, you cannot have the body back. Now, Elena was placed for viewing at the Lopez funeral home, and people were so curious that about 7,000 people came to see her. And at the beginning when I read this, I was like, oh my God, who wants to see a poor dead girl who has been mummified? And then I say, well, maybe I would have done it. There's not like probably much to do anyhow, but I probably would have want to take a look to see how she did. But around 7,000 people came to see her. This is kind of how she looks like. She had like a blue kimono kind of thing. This is all the people that came to see her. Now, the judge decided that the best thing to do was to bury Elena somewhere where Tanzler wouldn't find her. So only the people who buried her, which was 3 men, and her sister, which was the only relative alive, because her parents and her other sister, they all died of tuberculosis. So Miss Medina was the only family that she had left. So she was the only one who was allowed to know where she was buried. And you know what the funny thing is that she said when she went to visit the grave, after people say that there was something wrong, she said, when I used to go to visit my other sister, I feel at peace. But when I went to see Elena, I felt like an empty feeling, like she wasn't there. And that's when she tried to confront Tanzler, and she found out she was right. She was not there, which is kind of like a sister intuition, I guess. So that winter, after all the charges were dropped, he stayed in Key West, and he will charge 25 cents to anyone who wanted to go to his house to hear the story of Elena and show any of the things that, like the devices that he used, or flowers, the clothing, anything that he used in Elena. And a lot of people did. And eventually the curiosity stopped and they stopped coming up. But he was kicked out of that little shack that he lived in. He couldn't afford getting a new place. He decided to leave Key West and go to Cyphern Hill, where his sister still lived. He packed everything he owned, including the airplane, Like, it's not like he just grabbed 2 suitcases with clothing and that was it. He packed everything he owned, and he left on Monday, April 14. In a couple hours, he left like in the middle of the night. In a couple hours after he left, at 1:45 a.m. on April 15, there was a massive explosion on Elena's mausoleum, and people believe that he kind of created some kind of explosion to destroy it, but it was never proof that it was him. So from Elena's original grave, there's nothing left. So this is kind of how it looks after the explosion. And there's nothing left of the original grave. But in the East Martello Museum in Key West, they have a replica, or I don't know if they still have it, I couldn't figure it out, but at least they used to have a replica of Elena's grave in their story. Now, many people in Key West, they sympathize with him. He was like an old grandpa, okay? He kind of looked like an old grandpa. And everybody felt like he was like in love with this little lady. And in a way, they didn't see that he did too much of a wrong, you know? But one thing that most people didn't know back then is that he was actually committing those acts of necrophilia, because that wasn't revealed until like the 70s. So after he left, he arrived to Zephyr Hill, and then he started living with his sister. His wife, his actual wife, was still living over there, not with him or not with the sister. She was living on her own with one of her daughters, because the other daughter, she died, and she has sent message to him saying, hey, she died, come to the funeral, I need some money. And at that moment, he was too busy trying to bring Elena back to life that he never went. So now that he was back, they became the wife of you-know-who did you-know-what. So they had to live with this stigma, even though they didn't do anything. And they weren't even back together. And the thing was, too, that Tanzler, he didn't have any income. He wasn't working. He was old. So she was nice enough to bring him food from the little money she made working, which I don't know if I would have done it, but she did. For many years, he lived in there. And then he wrote a memoir about Elena's ordeal, and it was actually published, and it was called Fantastic Adventures, The Secrets of Elena's Tomb. And it was published. I don't know how famous it was, but it was, and you can still get it today. And this is the point of view of how he thought everything happened, which is pretty much probably not true, but that's how he felt everything went down. How he confessed, how she confessed that he loved him, and their love was mutual, but pretty much I believe that Elena never cared for him. When he was somewhere around his mid-70s, the neighbors actually called the police because they haven't seen him for a while. So they called the police because he was missing. There was a pile of mail. They haven't seen him. They say, hey, can you please do a check to make sure that he's fine? So when the police went to the house, they found Tanzler dead. And he actually was very badly decomposed because he has been dead for about 3 weeks. And he was like next to Elena's casket. So he died in July of 1952. When the police kind of look around his house, they found this little weird collection. That included a wax replica of Elena's body and a plastic plate of her head next to where he slept. And this led to rumors that he had stole Elena's body once more. So some people believe that he actually stole her body, which I don't think is true. I think he kind of let go of her body. Somewhere in his memoir, he said, and this is paraphrasing, he said, even if her body was not with me, nobody could take her away from me because our souls were united. She has survived death and will be with me forever. So even if he didn't have the body, he believes she was with him. So I truly believe that was an actual replica, but he will like stay with her as if she was still there. What did you guys think? I feel like this story, it's kind of sweet that he really loved her, but completely wrong that he stole her body and did all the horrible things that he did. I really hope that she eventually found peace. But anyhow, thank you for joining me. I really hope you liked this episode. If you have any suggestions or comment, leave your comment below. Or if you have a personal story that you would like to share, send it at IvonnePlusOne@gmail.com. Thank you for being my plus one, and we'll see you next time. Bye.